Hey, Northbrook fam, just wanted to talk about the road towards gathering back together and what that looks like right now, and just give you any pertinent updates. Obviously, you know that this coronavirus pandemic is just an unprecedented time in our world, in our country, in our state, in our city, and then in the life of our little church. And it has been incredibly encouraging to plant Northbrook in the midst of all of this, and see God still move even in all that's going on. But also, we have missed out on much. We aren't getting the chance to sing together. And I was just talking with a friend recently, and how much she enjoys that, and how really grieved she is that she doesn't get to sing with her brothers and sisters and be sung over by her brothers and sisters. And that's just a real thing we're missing out on. Obviously, we're missing out on seeing each other collectively gather together and worship Jesus, and we're missing out on praying together. We've been missing out on taking communion together. Where we plan to do that weekly as we gather. We haven't got to do that at all together since we gathered together as part of a launch team. And so there's really much we're missing out on. And we've wanted to gather together, obviously, from the very beginning, and we haven't been able to, but now here we are just starting to consider and think about what that might look like in the coming days and weeks and months. And to be honest with you, planning to gather together and making those plans and figuring that out has been just the most difficult piece of all of this. Launching virtual was no fun. We didn't want to do that, and there's been some things to navigate there. But now thinking about, okay, what does it look like for the when and the how for us to start to maybe ramp up towards gathering together? It's just really difficult, and especially for churches like us that don't have a building, where there's a lot of options that are just withheld from us until we hear otherwise. But as the country and the state are opening up, where the Keller ISD is starting to think about what that could look like to let churches back in, and then we're starting to figure out what that could look like for us to be back in there. If you've listened to any of Governor Abbott's updates, he's really focused, him and the task force that's been appointed to kind of help open Texas back up, has been really focused on a couple stats. One of them is the daily infection. Well, one of them's hospitalizations, and really those numbers have been favorable for a while, except in a couple hot spots where things, there's been a spike that haven't been local at all. And even those have been okay, but there's just been some concerns about hospitalizations in some of those areas. But then the other stat they're looking at is daily infection rate. And so the daily infection rate, if you're not familiar with it, it's just the average daily infection. It is the percentage of positive cases to tests conducted. So that percentage. So if there's been 10 tests and one of them has been positive, then that's 5%. I'm just joking. That's 10% of those. That's how that stat works. But the average daily infection rate is basically dividing the 7-day average of positive cases by the 7-day average of tests conducted. And most medical professionals want something below 6% there as an average, and we're kind of hovering around that line, have been below it and above it and back below it, but we're kind of steadily staying below that line. So if that continues to stay below that, and as obviously Texas has been opened back up a good bit and continues to be, then that'll be favorable, and that'll be the trend that just the whole state takes, and obviously we'll be caught up in that. And so Keller ISD has mentioned a few things. They've said that they're looking to, obviously there's the governor, and then there's the UIL and TEA that are also influential in what schools do and what Keller will be able to do. And they're starting to allow some things going on. They're looking to have summer camps in July. And so we recently had that meeting. So they met with us and all the other churches that are meeting in Keller ISD schools. Obviously, we're the only one that had never actually got to meet yet. The rest of them had been meeting and then weren't able to meet, and now are in the same boat we're in, as looking back to meet. And so that in that meeting, They talked about how they're looking to do camps back in July with a decent amount of kind of stringent protocols. I think they're even starting to do strength and conditioning in June with one-on-one instruction, whatever that means. But what they're looking towards in the fall is potentially letting churches back in. And so as far as meeting in Keller ISD, the other thing they're doing is they said they just kind of monitor and evaluate the information, obviously as it comes, but on like 2-week increments, kind of look at things, evaluate the information that's come in, and then try to make decisions from there. But then in a 2-week increment, things could happen to where they have the decisions they did make, they have to take steps back and stuff like that. So again, it's basically a lot depending on these stats and other ones that will just continue to help us move in an opening direction or not. So one of the things Keller ISD did mention that maybe sometime in July, they're considering opening up their facilities to be used outside, like the playground, the parking lot. And so there would be potential for us to gather together on Sunday outside at Sunset Valley Elementary in the parking lot, or however we can make that work. Obviously, it's going to be July, so it's going to be incredibly hot. So we would want to do it more towards the evening, as really as late as we could do it, and it still be feasible because of how hot it is. And then look to hopefully start to gather inside in August is the hope. I would say a couple things about Keller. I really feel like they had a really positive outlook. One of the things I wasn't sure about that was cleared up is that they haven't considered or talked about like just not having churches, and they like the reality that churches meet in their buildings. They think it's good for the community, and so they're favorable of that, and they want to be back doing that. And they're hopeful in opening school back up for school starting in August. I think they were meeting this week to kind of start some of those plans and see what that could look like. So I was really encouraged by their positive, favorable tone to really try to do as much as they could do while remaining cautious and wise with the latest news that's out there. So that's where that stands. The other things I was going to say, or the other, just to kind of paint a picture. Sorry, move this real quick. So there's other ways we can gather, obviously, outside of just gathering together on Sunday or not gathering together on Sunday. And even just to paint a picture for where we're at right now, I was trying to think of all the things we're doing right now that are in person. And obviously our community groups have been given freedom to gather as men or women in person. We've recommended these gatherings happen outside, but if the people in your group are comfortable and it just actually works out better, inside is okay as well. We also know, obviously, I mentioned this to leaders, but you're a friend, you're a person, you can make decisions for your family, and there's people that you want to gather with and have dinner with and get together with. It obviously, as a state, those things are open and available now, and so and much of that has gone on, so that's a reality of ways people are gathering together in person right now. And then obviously we record on Tuesday nights, and even in those gatherings, I think this last Tuesday there was only maybe 4 of us. It was kind of a smaller night, but then sometimes there's up to about 10 or so volunteers just to make all of that happen. So that's one of the ways we're gathering together in person. And then this last Thursday was the first time we've gathered in person as elders at our elder meetings. We've been having elder meetings over Zoom, but that's been since March. And so last yesterday was the first time we've done that. So those are right now really the only current ways that I know of that people in Northbrook are gathering together. And I give you that picture to talk about. Okay, so as we look to, that's kind of where we're at right now. So as we look to hopefully in August being able to gather back inside of Sunset Valley Elementary and do what we were planning on doing in March. Then so from where we're at to how we get there, there's still a big part of the conversation of what that looks like, some of those steps towards that. So I'm just going to give you kind of one clear next thing that you can do, and then just some broad things that we're talking about, and would love to hear any feedback you have, any conversations you've had, any concerns you've had, any suggestions you had. We're really open to hearing all of those. We've talked to people already about some of the things they're thinking and desiring. And as you can imagine, there's a spectrum, but we love to know that and love to hear from, like even thinking about me, like I am as just one of the elders at Northbrook, considering what it looks like for us to lead Northbrook in this way, but I'm not leading Northbrook in how I even respond to all that's going on personally. Because me and my family think about this in a particular way, and other families would think about it in a different way. And so it's fairly easy to kind of lead ourselves in this. Hopefully we're being wise and mindful of all of that, but it's a whole nother thing to lead everyone in this. And so that's some of the differences, but we really like to know where you're at and what you're thinking, especially if you're struggling, if we can pray for you or talk to you, and then even just answer any logistic questions. Sorry, that was a little bit of an aside. So feel free to email, give any of that feedback, text, just give us a call, let us know what's going on there. So in next steps, one of the things we would say is that you can start doing as soon as this Sunday. This is Friday, so in a couple days, is consider having a watching party for this Sunday service. Some people have done that already. Some people maybe did that early on and then stopped doing that. We would, if you're comfortable, and obviously someone else is comfortable in coming over or having you over, y'all can feel free to get together. I would encourage you maybe 2 or 3 families, so that'd be like total probably to do that. So maybe invite 1, maybe 2 other families over and just watch the service together. I think even just personally for us, it's gotten a little harder as a family to watch the service as we've continued on, mainly with just our little kids. And to be honest with you, I think there's something to having families over to watch it that might make that a little easier, even for our kids, to give them some other friends to kind of do some of that stuff together with. That's just something that we would encourage you to consider right now. Again, we never would want to encourage anybody to do anything they're uncomfortable with in this season, and we want you to be careful. If you're in any of the kind of vulnerable populations, 65 or over, or struggle with any of the underlying conditions that they've said makes this a really hard thing to endure for you if you were to get COVID-19, then we would encourage you to take the precautions that you need to take. And then also, even if you're not any of those things, but you're around people like that, so you want to be cautious for yourself, or you just, you want to be more cautious and you're not ready for that, just feel great freedom in that. And so, but as much as you are comfortable, feel free to gather. And then again, I would highly recommend we all do that on Sundays at 10 a.m. When that video is premiered, and we can all have that shared experience and do that with families then. At least I would really encourage you, at least make that, even if you haven't been watching on Sunday, maybe try that as your first option. And then if that just doesn't work, then you can try maybe another time, especially if it's good for you and another family to get together throughout the week and watch that together. So that's one thing you can just, feel free to start doing even now. And then now, as we think about getting together moving forward, I have no idea what they're listening to. It's really loud. Hopefully you enjoy the background music. But as we start to think about getting together and gathering, even in a facility or outside, some of the events we're starting to consider are like, okay, what would it look like for us to gather for a night of prayer, maybe with no kids present? So that would mean most likely it would be the husband or the wife that would come out if you do have kids. But so like no kids, not just no childcare, but just no kids. So it's like a first step to figure out what it looks like for us to gather as a church with a little more people. It's not a Sunday gathering, but just a night of prayer, something like that. Maybe even outside, maybe inside a local church here, if we have access to their space, which I'm talking to some of them. And then from there, maybe having one of those kinds of gatherings with kids, but no childcare, so kids present. So those of you that have kids that you are able to control in that kind of way and can kind of be around you. So frankly, our family couldn't come to something like that. But again, it'd be a good thing to try to do. And then start to have one of those smaller gathering, nights of prayer, or something like that with childcare present, where we do offer maybe the pre-K age childcare, and start to see what that looks like as we gear up to, Lord willing, in August, gathering together at Sunset Valley with adults present and with all the resources that we have to share the gospel and pour into and invest in our kids. And so, that's kind of, we don't have those things concrete yet, what it's going to look like, when it's going to be, where it's going to be. But so those are some of the things that we were discussing and looking to, definitely, especially as the numbers continue to trend in a healthy direction. So, man, love y'all. Thank you for being with us in this. Again, hopefully, for some of you, this will probably be maybe too fast, for some of you too slow. And again, we'd love to hear any of that. For many of you, this might be, man, this is exactly what you're hoping for. And then so many of you, I think, as you can imagine, you're just thinking, man, yeah, this is an incredibly hard thing to navigate and move forward in. And so we're so thankful for your understanding for us in that way as we try to do that. So love you and look forward to praying together this Sunday night. So don't forget that. It's in this email. But this Sunday night, we are having a time we'll be praying about this and a lot of the other things that are going on in our country right now. So